Well, Uncle Mark,
Yes.
a lot of what we talk about are ideas,
Yes.
but some of these ideas have a physical location.
Well, you've caught me in my favorite physical location on Sunday, which is my bed.
Which is
But
Okay, come on, you're on the turlet.
which
We
is
all know
naked
it.
on the toilet. We know exactly where Mark is.
do you know every time you hear my voice on this podcast, it's from the toilet? Did you know that, listeners?
It's a little inside baseball there for you.
That means I have pooed 105 times as of this recording.
Total.
Yeah. Total. Yeah. I saved that magic for the air, baby.
Yeah, almost 50 years of not pooping, and then finally it all came out because
Yeah.
of podcasting.
That explains Mormonism right there.
It's the magic of podcasting,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen. You know where none of us are today, gentlemen? At church.
That's right, guys.
Though it is very much the Sabbath, or at least we were raised to believe that Sundays, we record on Sundays, and we think of this as the Sabbath. Seventh-day Adventists, Jews, and Muslims may disagree, but
Yeah.
we all know it's Sunday. Come on, guys.
It's pronounced Muslims.
The Muslims.
The Muslimin.
Anywho, listen, a couple weeks ago, Uncle Mark, you gave us a lovely little primer on setting healthy boundaries when you discussed cutting toxic people out of your life, even if they're your family. Well, today I wanted to dive into some dicey territory for many of us that can also be about boundaries and about personal choices and navigating conflicting feelings. Today I want to talk about going to church. Going to church, you ask, in a weird voice that I don't know why you're using. Why would we talk about that? Especially considering the show is all about what to do when you've stopped going to church. And so it is mostly, but not entirely. First of all, there are plenty of people who have long since stopped believing, but for any number of reasons, continue to attend church.
Yes.
I have atheist friends who really enjoy Unitarian church, for example.
Yeah.
They get a mostly secular sermon about being a good person with very few references to any God, but lots of references to poetry, philosophy, that sort of thing.
And live music.
And live music,
Yeah.
and they get to interact with other weirdos, and so there's a lot of positives there that they see. There are also lots of atheists in pews, basically because family or social ties are bringing them there. Their partner goes to church, and their kids go to church, or their parents go, or whatever. And often they feel obligated, or they just go with the flow. Sometimes they even feel like they're getting something out of it. So there you go.
Yeah.
However, those are not the people I want to talk about today. Today I want to reach out to people who, like me, and I assume you other uncles, and most sane non-believers, who have exactly zero interest in religious services. Actually, you know what? That's not exactly true. For me, I actually really enjoy occasionally attending various church services. In part because mostly because I find it fascinating and strange, and I get to play amateur psychologist and sociologist and anthropologist as I go and watch believers doing their thing. So I've been to mosques, I've been to Hindu ceremonies. I've attended at the Zen Center here in Salt Lake. I've been to all kinds of Catholic, and Church of England.
You went to Burning Man
services. I've been to absolutely.
Yeah.
Pentecostal is a really fun thing to do.
The Manti Miracle Pageant?
The Manti, sure, exactly. So I love it. I like watching belief in action and sort of just taking a step back and going, wow, humanity is bizarre. But also, I kind of relate it to my love of bad movies. You know what I mean? It just feels like you're watching a bad movie and
right.
sort of exploring that.
But as you said before, you're doing this completely voluntarily as an anthropological exercise.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And to see, cool architecture and whatever.
And if you don't like it, or it's not going well, or whatever, you just get up and walk out.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It would be lovely if, as secular folks, the religious world just left us alone and kept their nonsense to themselves. But as Uncle Mark sort of hinted at, it is not that ideal world.
No.
That's just not how what the place we live. I'm more than 20 years out of religion, and I'm the highest profile atheist that most of my friends and family know, and yet I still get invited to and am often expected to attend religious services of various kinds.
Ugh.
Right.
In Mormonism, that ends up being
Please go back to our episode on estrangement to figure out how to deal with that. So
right. It ends up being things like baptisms, baby blessings,
Yeah.
various ordinations, and whatever. And any number of other things that end up being very important rites of passage for family members. In other religions, that could mean weddings, confirmations, your various mitzvahs, bar and bat, or any number of kooky things that, whatever nutball your people associate with,
Right.
come up with. So for many of us, it's not a big deal. A lot of people are just fine going to, a service because their nephew's having a thing or, being baptized or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not always that easy. For some, there's very real trauma associated with
Yeah.
church,
Yeah.
which can make just walking through the doors a trigger.
Or even just being on the property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Or, for some, they can get in and it's fine. And then a ceremony starts and it's just like,
Yeah.
I usually feel fine, even in Mormon church. But when the Mormons start singing their hymns, I often find myself feeling emotional. And I'm not even sure what that emotion
I was going
is.
to say, what emotion?
I'm not even sure. But it's like they'll start singing a hymn that I used to think was very deep and spiritual or something. And then I'm like, oh, weird. And I'll start to like well up a little bit or something.
It's a burning in your bosom, Dan.
It is.
What's the name for the emotion of pure, like, terror,
Revolt.
humor, and dissonance?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's that one. Yeah, you nailed it. But, it doesn't even have to be an event. Sometimes family members or friends will put a ton of pressure on you to just try to get you to their church.
Yeah.
I just reported this last week on Thank God I'm Atheist about a guy in his 20s, I think I want to say Tennessee, somewhere in the U.S. South, that came out to his family as being gay about a year ago. His family hasn't helped. You'll be shocked to learn they weren't entirely thrilled about this revelation. They asked him to come to church, and he, wanting to be kind and wanting to be sort of wanting to offer an olive branch, he and his partner went to church.
And they got
with
attacked,
them.
right? Yeah.
And they were attacked. Basically,
Physically.
in the middle of the sermon, the pastor decided to pray and had a whole bunch of the parishioners gather around them in a circle.
No
And he started to
way.
pray directly at them, asking God to please make them see what shitty, awful people they were for being gay.
And they prevented them from leaving.
Well, his partner managed to escape, but they held him down in the
Yeah.
church, and apparently one guy hit him, and he was like, and literally they held him down and prayed at him, and obviously it worked, and now he's straight, so that's good.
And again, like President Nielsen, it's for love. It's out of love.
It's all out
That's
of
right. If that's the way I go, if that's how I die, it will not convince me in the existence of God, but it will convince me in the existence of the devil.
Yeah, I mean, that's a more believable entity, but neither of them are real. Unfortunately, humanity's just shitty like that
Right.
sometimes. So what do we do when we're invited or pressured or commanded to go to church by friends or loved ones?
Well, it's a super tough one, and I would like to just, as the resident homosexual, I would like to just say something about that last anecdote you brought up, Dan, about the couple being attacked in church for the crime of trying to be nice and keep the peace with their family.
Right.
For a lot of people, church is not a safe place, and it's not just physical. I cannot go back. I cannot physically walk back into a Mormon church property because, I can go to Temple Square because it's a laugh and everything. But I can't go to a normal ward house because of the incredible amount of emotional violence that was done to me there, right?
Yeah.
It is triggering. I'm one of those people you were talking about.
Yeah.
And so for people in the LGBTQI spectrum, for a lot of women, Church is not a safe space, and so expecting them to go to that place is cruel, and you need to check your shit before you just make a blanket demand of those people. So that's kind of one notion.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I will say this, I doubt that there are that many believers who are listening to us and wondering if they should invite their people.
I don't think that's
So what we're
listenership.
so
Do you
we're
know
going
what,
to be
guys?
talking.
Do you know what, guys? There's a few.
There are a
There's-
few,
Yeah, there are a few, and I hear from that.
and they need to hear this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to speak directly to the people who are being invited / coerced to come
Yeah.
to church. And I thought I'd write. It's not. I figured I sort of like write up a bit of a flow chart. It's not much of a thing, but it'll spur some conversation, some thought.
Yeah.
So let's go through a few things. Some questions to ask yourself. First off, do the people who are inviting you to church know that you don't believe? Because that's an important thing. If you've kept it from them, you're going to have a different experience. But it's something that's probably pretty important. If not everyone feels safe or it's not always safe to come out as atheists to people.
No.
But if it is at all safe, it's probably worth doing. Because if they're inviting you to church, now here's the thing: if they do know that you're a non-believer and they invite you to church, you need to ask yourself some questions there too. You need to ask yourself, why are they inviting me, and will they be respectful of my beliefs if I come?
Yeah.
Obviously, that did not work out so well for the kid in Tennessee.
Right.
No.
But you can actually set expectations before you go. You can have a conversation before you go that is like, I would, if you're inclined to go, you can say things like, I'm glad to participate with you. I'm glad, your son's going, or your daughter's going through this rite of passage, and I love them and I would, want to be there with them. Mm-hmm. However, nothing should be asked of me while I'm there, or like what. And that's the next thing I wanted to
My presence
mention.
is enough. My presence
Yeah.
is enough. I'm going as a family event. I'm not going as a religious event.
Exactly. So my next question is, do you know what's in store?
Right.
So are you familiar with how the services go, generally speaking? It's okay to ask what to expect. If you don't know, that's fine. Just say, cool. Thanks for inviting me to the bar mitzvah. I don't know what those look like. Can you tell me what I should expect, or what might be expected of me?
What is the level of audience participation? I ask that before I go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Do I need my own little round hat?
Including a play that Dan is in.
Yes, indeed.
Which is why I went to the bathroom at opportune moments during the Rocky Horror Show.
Rude. Just rude.
But you were a tour de force. It wasn't you.
Okay. Thank you. The next thing to ask in terms of knowing what's in store is, do you know who will be there? Because it can make a difference who else might be in there. So that can be useful to know. And also, will anything I touched on this, will anything be expected of you that you might not be comfortable with? Because some churches have expect everyone to read aloud from a certain thing. They might expect you to pray. They might expect you to sing.
Oftentimes, Baptist churches will ask the new people to introduce themselves to the congregation.
Exactly, and that can be really uncomfortable, and the people around you might out you, and you need to know that. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You can just say, wave your hand and say hi and whatever. But are they going to come up to you and ask you questions? Because you should know that. That's something that you should know, and then that will be part of your decision making.
Yeah.
And are there participatory like ceremonies?
Yeah.
Am I going to be expected to chant or pass a thing along or whatever? Just know what you're getting yourself into.
What does it cost?
Yeah, well, there's that
that's
too.
a good question.
Yeah, there's always that moment where the communion plate or the collection plate's going around. It's a very easy thing for me to just hand over.
So
to the
take
next
a
person.
nearly expired coupon with you just in case.
Yeah, exactly. Or an expired one.
Take one of those fake dollars that Christians give servers in restaurants. And put that in.
Yes. 100% do that.
And it's just got
Oh my
quotes
God,
from
yes,
Christopher
do that.
Hitchens in it.
Oh my God, we need to start doing that. Oh,
Exactly.
why has that not been a thing?
Right.
Oh, we'll see how many of those we can get into Joel Osteen's collection plates. So then another thing to ask is, how's your mental state?
Yes.
Check in with you. Do you
Yes.
have negative or traumatic associations with that concern you? Will you feel okay there for a while, or will you feel anxious / re-traumatized if you go?
Yeah.
Because that's a valid thing to be at. You know, if your parents are putting a lot of pressure on, but that's where you feel like you'll be, they're putting you in a rough position because you have to choose between rejecting them and feeling shitty. But remember that feeling shitty, that's rejecting you.
Right. And that is a lot of times parents, I think at some point during the conversation, we're going to come back to the idea that a lot of the people we're talking to in this moment, a huge number of people that are forced to go to church against their will are minors.
Yeah.
Right. And right up front, there's not a lot you can do about it. But if you're a minor or you're not, but your family especially is putting a ton, or a spouse or whatever, is putting a ton of pressure on you to go into a place that you are traumatized by going, like I would be, maybe Doug would be. If you're young, I went through this myself. It's just so emotional, and it's so angry, and it's so, you dig your heels in and you try to just, fight your way out of it. Well, maybe there's a different tack you can take, which is all the things Dan was just laying out, right? Check in with yourself, asking what's expected, asking what the outcome is supposed to be. If you can articulate why it is upsetting to you, to the people around you, it may be far more effective than just slamming a door, right? If you can say, I am depressed when I go there. It makes me sad. I feel I feel intellectually violated. I feel
You can even say things like, look, I'm happy that it's a place of comfort for you, or a place that you feel good, but I feel I felt trauma when I went there.
Yeah.
And going back there hurts me in a way that I'm not willing to put myself through.
But I think a lot of the people who would find themselves in this situation, typically they're being asked to go back to the church of their former life,
Right.
by people in their current life, and their family and friends. And that's, so I think in a lot of cases they know what to expect.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't want to go. And
Right.
That's certainly why I don't want to go. I had, a couple years ago, I had kind of a shitty year, and several people I know died. One girl died in a car wreck. Another guy who worked for me, his daughter died young.
Doug,
she was
Doug
very sick.
swears he has an alibi for all of these things, but they're not great. They're not watertight, is all I'm going to say right now. Yeah.
The podcast was my alibi.
Definitely not watertight then.
So, I had to go to the girl who died was Mormon, and so her
family was
funeral-
Mormon.
her family was Mormon.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Pardon me. Yeah, she was raised Mormon. No longer her family was. Yeah. So the funeral was in a Mormon church.
Yeah.
And that was for me very unnerving, and I didn't like it, but I felt very obligated to go. The young girl who died was her parents were Catholic and Hispanic, and that was held in a Hispanic Catholic church, and it was actually, I thought, very moving. So not all churches are the same. And so, I mean, they're all obviously, but just to put a little piece down, one of the things that I find so hard about, especially going to, say, a Mormon church or a J-Dub or an evangelical church, is that when you walk into those churches as a non-member or a potential member, it's like you just walked into the office of a timeshare salesman off the street.
Yeah.
They are they want you so bad.
They may descend on you. They may, and a lot of the times the covert reason that they want you to come
Exactly.
is because they want to bring you back to the fold.
So come to the baptism, come to the confirmation, or whatever. But really, really, we're just trying to get you in the building.
Right.
Yeah.
And to some extent, laying down a boundary of I would like to come. Here is how I'm willing to participate.
Right.
Here's how I'm not willing to participate, and if you
Right.
and here are behaviors that you could do that would that would inevitably make sure that I will never come to another thing again.
Right.
Or just in a more absolutist sense, here is why I cannot come.
Right,
And
and that's
I-
absolutely fair.
And
Yeah.
it's absolutely fair. And I think that this is not a one size fits all sort of thing. There is value to keeping the peace in a family, right?
Sure.
But you have to outweigh the family peace against your own health and against your own, freedom. You have to figure that out and lay that out. So
And a lot of this is about that. It may be that you can't go to stuff now, but you may do some work. You may do some work on yourself, and so deal with some of your past traumas. And then you may find later in life that you're capable of going, and it's fine. It's like nothing has to be a hard and fast rule, or you can make a hard and fast rule. This is your life.
Yep.
You get to live it your way, and you don't owe anybody you going to church, or you hurting yourself, or you traumatizing yourself, or you feeling even gross or shitty or whatever it is you feel. You don't owe that to anybody.
No, and the people who are asking you to go, they don't know it. Maybe they do, but I don't think they do. They don't know the gravity of what they're actually asking.
No.
And so, you do. We all know that when someone asks us to go to church and we really have to consider, it's like, it's emotionally stressful. It's physically draining. It's like asking someone to help you move, right? Like, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so I can say no to that and say, I'm sorry, I just don't have it in me.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And they need to understand what they've asked you.
I actually feel like it's a much higher moral imperative to help people to move than it is to go to anybody's church. Anyway,
we have a friend who was another podcaster, a Mormon guy, former Mormon guy, who discovered he was an atheist in his mid-20s, who came to that conclusion in his mid-20s. And his wife couldn't even hear it, right? She could not even begin to have the conversation. So if I remember correctly, he sat in church with her every Sunday for 6 more years.
Yeah.
Until she finally was willing to have the conversation. And that's that he valued his relationship, and she was the mother of his first child at that point. And he valued all of that above his own kind of mental health and time and well-being. And I that seems a bit crazy to me, but I also think it's very admirable. Now she's completely out of it. They're a happy family. They're not bothered by this bullshit anymore. But he went through a hell of a lot to preserve that.
And that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about you discerning your own values and what's of use to you and what's not of use to you and what's of value to you. Because, look, saying, no, thank you, I'm not going to go to your church is not the same as saying, I reject you.
Right.
Now, there's a danger that they will take it that way. Family members are notorious for associating a rejection of their religion as a rejection of themselves, and that's going to be something that is tricky and can be difficult waters to navigate. Nevertheless, it's pretty important to be able to honor yourself and who you are. Not everybody in this world has that luxury, and that's a tragedy, but most of us do, even if there is a cost. The people that you the people that you love, what am I trying to say? If they would reject you, if they would reject you because you couldn't go to their thing or whatever, and you decided to hide who you are because you fear that rejection, well, then you're participating in that rejection.
Right.
You're
participating
rejecting
in their abuse.
You're participating in that. They don't get to know you. So the person that they're not rejecting isn't even you. You're not giving them you to reject. So if you can do it, I'm 100% on board with just being as open and honest as you can. Here's who I am. Here's why I believe what I believe. If you're interested, and if you're not, I'm still going to be me, and we're going to have to navigate that together. We can, and I think actually, if you bring people into partnership with you in navigating these things, that can be nice too. They don't always do it, but it's a possible.
I think sometimes you've got to, if you're being asked to go to church by someone in your family or friend group, I'm guessing it's not an isolated case. I'm guessing it's a persistent, constant, hey, you should come, you should come, you should come. Sometimes it really helps to lay down some lead and say, I don't go because I don't think that homosexuality is evil, and I can't be in a place where people who think that gather.
You often have to push back harder than you're comfortable with, because when that is the main focus of their being, they can't ever. Your humanity is so secondary to their missionary zeal. So you occasionally, and I'm not saying be shitty to people, but occasionally you really have to push. You have to leave a mark for them to understand that stop this. I'm not okay with your constant pestering about this.
Yeah, the thing that you're doing to me now is hurting me and damaging our relationship.
And yes, driving me away from you. So
it tends to be effective when you push back a little harder than you normally would.
Yeah.
It does tend to work.
Yeah, prepare for them to act incredibly hurt.
And indignant and whatever. Yeah. And and stick to your guns. You can do it gently or you can do it hard. You need to sort of solve all these riddles for yourself in turn, because only you know your relationships.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think the long and the short of it is, it's okay to go back to church. That's fine. You can go like our friend did. You can go to church every day, every week for years.
6 years, yeah.
As a non-believer, and that's fine. It's also perfectly okay to never set foot in a church again.
Yeah.
Let's take 2 seconds and talk a little bit to our young listeners, who we have quite a few of, who are kind of stuck, right? And see what advice we can give them, because I think, for me, it was agony in the years and years and years after I had left emotionally. I was done with Mormonism. I still had to go I had to go to church for 8 years, every Sunday.
Yeah.
And it was tough. And unfortunately, from a legal perspective, you don't have a lot of ways out of it.
Yeah,
if
they
this
can
is
make
your
you do
situation. They can make you do it. So I think my advice is going back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier, which is really try to articulate, if you're safe enough to have a conversation with your parents, and you may not be. You need to judge how safe you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't. If losing a roof, if not going to church means you lose a roof over your head, go to fucking church.
Yeah, just do it. You can survive it. It gets better afterwards.
It does get better.
Get out of the house as soon as you can, and then you can have the conversation.
Yep.
But if you can have the conversation, if you trust your parents not to kick you out of the home, you can have that conversation. That's up to you to
try to make it not so emotional, and try to make it, and it's hard, make it more intellectual. Tell them why it hurts, right? And see how they respond.
Well, except what you don't want to do is make it intellectual in the sense of, like, don't try to convince them of your position, because that's going to fail. That's going to be
right.
If you go into it argumentative, if you go into it with, here's all of the reasons why what you believe is stupid and wrong,
forget it.
Forget it.
Yeah.
What you need to say is, here's the reason why this hurts me personally, and why I can't connect to it.
Well,
just speak your truth, not the truth, but your truth.
And I do have a little piece of advice for those listeners that we have, or people who know people in the situation, are too young to stop going, are forced to go. They have no choice. You have to go. I do have a little advice there. You're going to be in this church for a period of time, and one day you will be able to leave.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if you can have a positive effect by speaking out against something that's really egregious, or asking a question. I don't mean to get into a fight. I don't mean to question everything in every class. But someday someone else might look back at some question you asked or comment you made or correction, and that might be the seed that helps them find their way out. Yeah. So while you're stuck in hell, see if you can, if somebody says something shitty about a gay person or a woman or a minority or children in cages on the border, if you can at least articulate that that's not accepted by everybody, you might actually have some positive effect that one day will bear fruit.
Because I'll bet you're not the only one in that room that doesn't want to be there.
Right.
Or there's the other possibility, which is if you push back just hard enough, you could get kicked out of church and never invited back. So maybe there's light at the end of that tunnel too. Sorry, Mom and Dad, I can't go back. They won't let me.
Yeah.
Hit us up on Twitter and let us know what happened.
Yeah, you're right. And don't blame us when it happens.
But be super careful, protect yourself.
Yeah,
And,
Absolutely.
And play the long game. It may be that you've just got to put up with this for, I know it seems like an eternity, a couple more years. And when your freedom comes, it's going to be insanely sweet. But play the long game, stay safe, and get out intact.
And for everybody, just remember that your first responsibility is to you.
Hey, and while you're at it, guys, remember, steal toilet paper. Just every time you go to church, take a couple rolls of toilet paper.
That shit's free.
Right? Yeah.
Or do an upper decker. I'm not going to explain what it is. Google it. It's a beautiful. It's performance art. It's just art.
Oh my God.
Do it for love.
Okay, we have devolved, and and I think that's the time to move on.
All right. Let's move on.